Hi, welcome to my craft room. This is Kathy at inkingpaperwithkat.com. Today's project is this little tote bag, or tote box actually, that holds a single K-cup. This one happens to contain a hot apple cider, which is actually a great thing to have for the fall. This would make a wonderful teacher's gift, just a little treat for a coworker perhaps, or as a table treat if you're having some friends over for lunch, something like that. So let's look at the supplies that we're going to use. We are going to use a piece of craft cardstock that is 6.5 by 11, a piece of Cajun Craze cardstock, and that's just for punching a little circle. We need a scrap of very vanilla cardstock for making our greetings on. We need 2 pieces of DSP that are 2 3/8 by 1 3/4. Now this is from the Painted Autumn Cards DSP stack, and it is a beautiful stack of paper. Every sheet in it is just gorgeous. And then we need a small piece that we can cut out one of the images so that we can raise it up a bit to give this some dimension. Alright, let's look at the stamp sets we're going to use. We are using here it is, Label Me Pretty, and we're going to use this Thank You for Caring, because I'm making this as a gift for someone who has been very special lately to me. And we will also be using the Pretty Label Punch, as well as some circle punches. And we're going to use Cajun Craze ink today. So let's get out our Simply scoreboard, and we are going to put the long side at the top, and we are going to score it at 2.5, 4 3/8, 6 5/8, and 8.5. Turn it to the short side, and we are going to score it at 2 and at 4.5. That's all the scoring done. Now before we fold and burnish, we actually want to do some cutting, and let me bring in a template so you can see what this is going to look like when we get it cut out. It's got an hourglass shape, and let's just take it out a little bit so you can see better. With 2 flaps coming off of the side, and then there are 2 flaps on either end. So we're going to start cutting on the short end, and we want to cut up each of these score lines to the first score line. And then we're going to take about 3/4 of an inch off of the end. You don't have to be precise, that's going to fold into the inside of the box. And we're going to just take a small wedge off of each side. And that's just so you get a nice tight fold. We're going to turn it, and we're going to do the same thing on this side. You're just going to take off that 3/4 of an inch, and then take off your wedges. All of the products I'm using today are from Stampin' Up. Alright, now we are going to cut up this. Alright, you see you've got these 2 flaps, and then there is a square in the middle, and you're going to cut the score line on either side of that square. Do that on both sides. Okay, now we need to make a diagonal cut that points towards the center. You can certainly mark it if you want, but if you have a long pair of scissors and you start on one corner and just go down, you will be fine. And you're going to do the one on the other side of that square, same way. So that's what you're left with. Now let's do the other side. Same thing. And the final cut. All right. Now let's put this together. Let's start by folding and burnishing all of these folds. Now you could do this beforehand. I just find it easier when there's so many cuts to go ahead and do my cutting and then do my fold and burnish. Okay, so that's our box. Before we put it together, we are going to put our DSP on. And the DSP goes this way. Look at your DSP, decide which one you want to be the front, because there's no formal front, back or front of this box. It'll all depend on the DSP and how it looks. Now you do need to remember that this is a directional DSP. So you want to make sure it's going in the correct direction for when it's folded up. So we're just going to take some fuse. Put on the back. I like to make sure I have an adequate amount of adhesive. I don't want my DSP falling off. Now this is a very tight fit. It's a very, very small border around it. So you really have to line it up carefully. And this one goes on the other side. All right, now, in order to put this together, you're going to bring these two sides up so you can see what it looks like. We're going to fold up this and bring it around and fold these pieces down. Now you may need to trim these side pieces down a little bit to make sure that you get the perfect fold. That side up and that one down. So now you see how that's going together? And make sure you put them together the same direction. So when at the end you've got it all right. Now you could put this together with glue dots, with Tombow, with fuse. I like to use double-sided tape. I know some people feel more comfortable using Tombow because it gives them a little bit of wiggle room, and if you're feeling that you may need that, then I would recommend Tombow. Alright, let's take this backing off. Right, we're going to pull these up, over, and down. So you pull it up, line up the top, bring that piece over, and down. Same thing on this side. Line up the top with your fold. Alright, and there's your little box. Now, to get that carrier handle, we're going to use a 1-inch punch. And I just slide it in. Now you can do this beforehand. I just kind of eyeball it where I want it and punch. And I do the same thing on the other side. Now if you want it perfect, line it up beforehand. But that looks okay to me. Now let's talk about how to get that 3D effect. There are a couple of ways that you can do this. I want this image right here, and I want it cut out. You can fussy cut it, and this particular pattern, it is not hard to fussy cut. It's pretty easy, but I do not particularly enjoy fussy cutting. So I do have an e-cutter, and I scan the paper in, and then I cut on my e-cutter. But if it's a pattern that you can easily fussy cut, there's no reason why you shouldn't fussy cut. You could also, some of the papers in the holiday catalog actually coordinate with some dies and some punches, and you could also do it that way. So I want to raise this up, I want to give it a 3D effect, so I'm going to use dimensionals to do that, and I want it to stand up a little bit more than that other one did. Just wasn't quite high enough, so I'm actually going to put a dimensional on top of a dimensional so that I can get that to stand out a little bit more. Make it a little bit thicker. And then all you do is you take the image you've cut and you put it on. And there you've got that 3D effect. Let me see if I can zoom in a little so you can really see that 3D effect. All right, let's stamp our greeting. We are going to use fresh fig ink and a scrap of very vanilla. And punches. This is the 1 1/4 inch, which just fits right around this image. This is the Label Me Pretty punch. You just want to line it up so you have an equal border. And then we also want to punch a 1 3/8 inch circle out of fresh fig. All right, let's layer those together. Use some dimensionals. One on the back of the fresh fig and right in the middle of our label punch. One on the back of the sentiment, and we will center that. And then 2 on the back of the whole thing to layer on our box. And now all that's left to do is to add a ribbon at the top. I'm using Early Espresso. Just tie a square knot. trim our ribbon. And there is our little hot apple cider K-Cup box. I hope you enjoyed the project and join me again soon.